think from this episode, what I like most, and I think, I'm not sure if it's highlighted enough, that's why I want to repeat it, is when you're on a mission with 1,000 people, everyone knows what's going on. Everyone knows what direction they're on. Everyone knows what's expected from them.
At least in their part, yeah.
And this is such a powerful thing, I think. And this is what entrepreneurs should do. Be very transparent, be very open, make sure everyone understands what your mission is. What
the intent is, yes.
What direction you're on, what expected from them, and make it as easy for them to explain it. And that's where you come to, you have to understand that, but also make it easy to back brief, or like even, because how cool is it if you're at a birthday somewhere as a part of a team and you can explain with a couple of sentences what the mission that you're on with the company.
Yeah, but nobody can.
You have to make it so clear.
Yeah, and give them the trust within their part and their boundaries that you set to try and do so, because they can. That's why you hired them.
Do.
Yeah.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
One of the few combat helicopter pilots ever, or at least in the Netherlands, I think. One of the few. How many are there, do you know?
Well, I think in total there were about 15 something, but it's over 25 years. So,
yeah, for me, you're one of the best keynote speakers. You're in my top 3.
Well, thank you.
That I ever listened to. You were speaking at our festival last year, but I've seen you before. You've helped us out at the strategy days, and you have such an amazing talk. So I'm super excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Maybe you want to add something to the introduction, because you're doing a lot of stuff with leadership now. The Boost company.
Well, maybe a nice add-on is that I've been an Everest pilot for 20 years, but in between I became a mediator and I saw the behavior of people, and that's why I studied behavioral psychologist as a behavioral psychologist, and that's where the whole fundament starts of the you know, we have such a strange brain, and I love it. And that's what I combine, so that's why it works, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's good to know. Yeah. So, what do you love most about that thing? So, we have a strange brain, and what is it that excites you about that?
Well, actually, what I never knew was that we are completely emotional beings. Every decision that you make is emotional, and everybody thinks they're rational and logical, and we rationalize every decision that we make. But in the end, it's all emotional. Even if you decide to buy a chair in the house, and you walk by one and it's red, and you say, I don't like a red color, and people ask you why, you never know. But deep down inside, there's something with that color red. It comes from a experience whenever. And that's why you don't like the chair, but we don't know. But if you dive into that part of your brain and you can see through it, you know where your decisions come from and why it's maybe useful or not.
And how do you apply that knowledge, that science, in your work nowadays? Because you have the Boost company, you do a lot of speaking, you inspire a lot of people.
Yeah.
How do you apply that knowledge in practice nowadays?
Well, you have to know that everybody in the working environment, also at home, but most of the time you can see it very clearly in a working environment. We all are about the content and how well you know your content, how good you are at the content in your job. But what's deciding what the output will be is the human factor on it. So as a helicopter pilot, I thought I was trained in hard skills, but it's not the truth. You are trained in hard skills a lot of times, most of the time you have a 20-year-long leadership course in soft skills because the interaction, the way you behave, every little detail of that, every second in your life is the human factor on everything you do.
Yeah, and I always find it so fascinating when you look at, for example, Kamp van Koningsbrugge, the program that I like to watch, is that you think it's a physical challenge, but I think the mental part...
It's mental.
It's even harder.
Yeah. But that's it. The physical part is you have a limit or not. You can do this or not. You know, that's just, and a lot of times you can go way further than you think. But that's all mental. The whole training in the military environment is a mental training, actually. How well can you cope with an uncomfortable situation, for instance? And in the commercial world, we never learn that. You just have a study and you go into your working environment. You're very good in the content, but nobody teaches you how to deal with something that changes or stress or so that's what I think is the best combination ever, and that's what I teach people.
Yeah, so you've been in the area for 20 years. What are the most important things that you've learned in that environment that people should know about and maybe can apply in a working environment? like more like an office environment?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing I come across in the commercial world now is that feedback is never given, or maybe in sort of a really nice gift package kind of thing.
Yeah, I know the feedback rules. This is what I see and gives me the feeling that is that true. That's nice.
And maybe that's already a little in a gift package because what I think is the best to do is to have a clear vision on what feedback is. It's absolutely only about the content of where the feedback is about and not about the person.
Yeah.
And a lot of people attract it on the person itself, and it's absolutely not the truth. So you have to see that, and you have to train it, because if you just do it once, you get the feeling it's about you, but it's not.
And what would be an easy way to train yourself or others on it? Because it's easy to say that don't take it personally. But it's okay. That's shit. But don't take it personally. It's about the content that you made.
I understand. Yeah, that's the most difficult part, of course, and that's what we do with the Boost Company as well. We train people in doing it. If you just peel off what you are doing and ask the questions, why did you do it? What do you think you can bring with that, or what's the effect on the other person? That's how you start training it. Because if you can peel it all off, you can see what it's all about. And if you just made a statement, you cannot see what it's all about. It's very minimalistic. Feedback is very minimalistic, actually. We don't know that. So it's a training. And you have to do it every day and train it with the people and say what happens if you say it. And only then you can be good at it. But we never train it. And if you get a leadership training in companies, a lot of times it's just one day. And you do it just once and you say, oh yeah, I know. Because we do it. And then they go and they never do it.
You have to practice it.
Yeah, you have to practice it. Yeah, train, practice, yeah. You have to do it a couple of times.
Don't you like that? Please like and subscribe, because there's more exciting stuff to come. Do you know any people that we should invite? Please leave their name in the comments and we'll make sure that we have them on the pod. Yeah. And I find it fascinating because, for example, Ray from Comfort Coachbook, and I see that with you as well, is that you are so clear in describing what you see and what happens.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating. Is that something you're trained on as well in the military?
Yeah.
Just to find the words and to actually describe what's happening. So this is what you're doing right now. This is what I see. This is what...
Yeah. But you have to be precise.
Yeah.
You have to be exact. If you have a lot of words for one thing, nobody knows what you mean. Yeah. So you have to be exact, because it's only that part of that little thing, content, what you want to give feedback about, not the whole thing. It's probably fine, the rest.
Yeah, and the gift that you're talking about, maybe that distracts a little bit from the actual thing that you see. So to make it a little bit less clear. So I believe one of the key learnings here is that if you can make it really clear and teach people and understand from each other, it's not a personal thing, but it's about the thing that's happening, the context, the content. Yeah, that might help in getting that feedback culture that you want to have, because I think it's also a culture, isn't it?
It's culture. I think it's culture. Yeah, I don't like the word culture actually, because it's too big. But I believe it's behavior, and behavior is culture, you could say. But my course is also called Behavioral Insights for a reason, because you have to be open and curious towards yourself at first, before you can give another person feedback. So if you cannot handle it, you're not allowed to give feedback. It's my rule. Okay, if somebody tells you something's wrong and you react immediately, because reaction and response is different. If you react immediately, then you're not ready for feedback most of the time. If you respond, you're ready. So if you can respond on feedback, you can give feedback out. That's maybe strange if I say that, but you understand that.
Could you elaborate a little bit?
Well, reaction is if you don't know your filters, your emotions. Then you just react on a feeling that another person gives you.
So comes up directly and then...
Exactly. Okay. If you know what your filters are and how you act and how you behave, you can respond. It's always more at ease. It's more effective. It's more... So you have to know your behavioral insights at first from yourself before you can give them out.
I think that's also what some people say is that if something annoys you, It's probably something of yourself, because you
100%.
will only see it when you recognize it. If it's something part of yourself as well, else you wouldn't recognize it.
Yeah, it's somewhere that it's a lot of times when people, I have that in training and I see it when it's going on, and I tell them this is old. We're not going to dive into this right now. It's not necessary. It's not fair to do.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to tell you this is old. Just go and dive into that, because it will suit you. It will serve you if you find out what it is. That's a lot of times it's very old. It's somewhere between 0 to 7 years old. Most of the time, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, because I find it so hard to remember that period. But
yeah, but that's also a funny thing that you say that, because until 3 or 4, the making pictures in the brain is not made. So that's why only from, let's say, 5, 6, 7, you have a picture of a memory. But it doesn't say there's no memory. There is a memory, but you just don't have a picture of it.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Strange world of the brain.
That's very interesting. Yeah, it's good to understand that, because my son turns 3 in July, so now he's starting to make pictures.
He remembers everything you did already.
Well, now he's copying every behavior that I do, so I get very
you're the example.
Confronted with the behavior that I show. It's interesting.
And do you see things now that you think, well, okay, that's maybe something I have to learn?
All the time. So
funny,
it's but yeah, also like I try to get rid of my phone and the screens when I'm at home, but you know how it goes, and sometimes he sits next to me and then grabs my arm, and I was like, oh shit. When I'm late from a meeting, and then I pick him up at daycare, and then he's the last one sitting over there, and I was like, oh shit, that's such
terrible feeling.
Terrible dad.
But don't you think it's funny that just before you had him, you had the same behavior? Even if it's not your phone, other behavior that you will see right now that you did not see before. That's exactly what I mean. You don't see your own behavior, and in the military, from day one, they will tell you, they will show you what kind of behavior you have. So that's the biggest difference, I believe.
And it's actually present. If you get feedback, it's so nice. So I've worked at Thuishaven, and you know them very well as well. And I remember when there was an assignment where we got 5 people that were really close to us to write a letter about us. And there were things in there that you would typically hear at a funeral. But it was such a great gift of other people telling you what they really appreciate about you, or what they want to give you as an advice. And,
beautiful.
And feedback is such a great thing, actually, if you ask me, because I always hate it when people say, oh, you did a great job on the presentation. Yeah, I know, I prepared it very well.
Yeah.
But tell me what I could have done different to get the 8 till 10, or even like a 6 to, and it doesn't really matter. But if you don't see it like that, then it becomes really hard to receive the feedback, I believe.
And I believe you have to give the feedback in both ways. So if we come back from a mission, we drop all hierarchy, and we just drop every rank that we have, and we just go and sit down. We tell you, okay, this was very good, this was very good, this could have been better, that's not as planned, that's that way, and that's how we do it. You peel it off in little pieces and tell them the good and the bad, just as simple as that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I see where that can be applied. So if you have a job review, and you're talking with your manager, that's not a one direction conversation, right?
No.
You have both ways.
Absolutely.
I forget about that. I hate to be called the boss, but because we're the same, we're on the same mission. And we need to improve wherever we are, or what position we are. So that's, I think, one of the interesting things.
And then you touch a point that I see way too often, and that would be one of my biggest advices to bosses. as I'm one as myself as well. So, but if you want to have people doing that, you really have to be the example. Lead by example is the best. Walk the talk is the best thing there is. If you do some soul searching, if you do some openness, if you are curious towards yourself and the rest, they will all copy that. Your lowest standard is their highest. It's the best rule there is.
It's funny because we have another guest coming up the show, Mathieu Graham. He's been a trainer for Olympic champs. And he once taught me that lead by example, but live by example. So he says, you don't become an Olympic champ. You have to live like an Olympic champ to become it.
Yeah, walk the talk. Yeah.
Yeah, if you get up in the morning, or like on Friday night, if you're getting a beer, you have to think, okay, I'm an Olympic champ. Should I drink beer right now, or should I train more? Right.
Yeah.
So if you start living it and walk the talk, like you say, then you become it. Because absolutely never.
100%. Yeah, I
It's
love
good,
it that he says that, because it is the truth. If you completely believe what you do, completely believe and live it, and I don't know if there's an English word for it, doorleven. I don't know if there's something in English that's similar like that.
I'm not sure.
Living through the whole belief. That's when you send it out, and people will do it as well. That's the only way how it works. That's the rule of the universe, I believe.
And yeah, I think you can hack that as well, because you can truly believe that if you are that person.
Yeah.
I remember, like, for example, Beyonce. I think her stage personality is Sarah Fierce. She becomes another character because Beyonce is very scared to get on stage. Tony Robbins' name is not really Tony Robbins. True. It's just a character that he created, and he started believing that that's the person. Yeah. So I find it. I'm still nervous when I have to go on stage, but you can teach yourself how to become the person that you want to be, and if you really start believing in it, you can be that person. And it can even be you can be one person by having that two different variations, I believe, without losing your own character. Yeah. So Beyonce is Beyonce, but on stage I think she's called Sarah Fierce. She has that personality. So, yeah. that button that she.
That's amazing, right? If you have that, that's amazing. But that's the biggest form of that. That's the biggest. But I really do believe. I have one little rule with my little son. He's 5-year-old, and he doesn't like to get up in the morning. He just want to stay in bed. He's just a little bit down.
Like you.
No, I'm always already happy when I get up. But maybe he has it from my husband. I won't tell anybody that. But so I tell him in the morning if he's a little bit like not happy. Yeah. And I tell him, just put the ends of your mouth towards your ears. Yeah. Just make the move. Even if you don't feel like that. And instant you feel different. That's the minor part of the Beyonce being Sarah. Just make the body believe in something there's not, but it will go and follow it. That's the brain is fakeable, really.
And there's research on it. So I sometimes do it with the keynote. I ask everyone to stand up to move a little bit because they will remember more. There's also research, and to have them smile so they can look at their neighbor and see there's something still between their teeth if it was after lunch. But also if they smile, they actually find it more fun. Yeah. So that's also
they
proven.
Accept it.
And one thing I also learned from Mathieu, and it was also one of the things that I do with my son is when he goes to bed. Mathieu is from Belgium, and he taught me about le moment magique. So the magical moment of the day. Yeah. And it's also like the dankbaarheidsoefening. So the thing you're thankful for of the day. Le moment magique. It's
beautiful
also really
saying.
nice.
Yeah.
And I discussed with Yuki, my son. So what did you do today? So you played outside, or like just repeat the cool stuff that he did. The nice stuff it is, so he'll go to bed with that feeling, and hopefully he dreams about that and not about I don't know that he fell or whatever what happened. So I
always make my son go inhale the beautiful things. What do you want? Have more that you have seen today that you want to have more tomorrow, and blow away the black stuff that you don't want to have tomorrow anymore. Nice. I believe this is what we did not have when we were young, right?
No.
I think that's beautiful that we in the whole world learn. To our kids a little bit more than we had. Not to make them soft, but just to make them more aware and more acceptable for whatever they are going to do.
Yeah, and it's I think also because of the world has changed with everything like that you see, and it's going so. You have to appreciate the things that you do have, and there's also a learning for myself. So it's for him and for myself to do that exercise because especially as many entrepreneurs, I think are like that. That it's never like you're always looking ahead for the next step. So appreciating what you have and the things that you're doing right now.
And looking for the balance and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. It's me learning through him.
yeah. Get that mirror.
Yeah, it's the truth. Oh, yeah,
that's nice. So tell me a little bit about the Boost company. So what is it that you like to do, and what do you help companies with?
Well, what I like to do is touch people's hearts at first, because that's I believe the only reason why people believe you. If you really can make a connection and touch a heart. The things that we do is that I believe in a military Air Force pilot training, we always get the step just a little bit out of the comfort zone, but always out of the comfort zone. That's where you learn, and we all know that already. But I think the best thing that we had is the military part and the behavioral part. To be the best you can in a cockpit, in an environment where if you made a plan and you fly out the gate, the plan is already gone. You have to always handle the biggest stress, panic, being comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. So that's what we have trained a lot of times. And that's what I do with the people that I get to train, with a combination of the fundament of the behavioral psychology. But I think what is the best part of it for everybody is that we are used to, in the last couple of years, being in those big training companies that I will not call them by name, that's not fair, but just sitting in a classroom, flipping through all those PowerPoints and all those pyramids of whatever you need in life, and then you walk out. And what do you take with it? With that? How do you take out of that? Sorry.
No worries.
Nothing, I believe. Everybody loses it immediately if you walk out the door.
95% is not. They don't remember anything.
Yeah.
They remember only 5% of the 2 weeks. I think that's what.
And I started wondering, why is that? And that's because there is no experience. The only way you learn, if you get amazed, if you get a wow factor somewhere, if you have an emotional moment in there, that's the only way how the brain will connect to that training. So that's exactly what we do.
Yeah.
We make it in a complete experience from the start. Is always inspiring. Then you have the experience, and then you'll get something that will explain to you what happens.
Yeah.
And that's why they never forget us. And I believe everybody likes it and wants to come back because it was a nice experience and not just sitting in there and getting all those pyramids of life. No, and I believe there's a really shift going on because all of those, if you are a corporate or if you're a small company, everybody wants to do it different now. We're done with all those sitting in the classroom things.
Yeah.
And having a trainer in front that doesn't have any experience. He was just trained in that little map in the little book.
Yeah,
So
I found it so hard when I was studying at the Erasmus University. Like I studied entrepreneurship, and there was a professor in front of the room, and I just asked the question, saying like, "Hey, what business did you start?" For me, it was super important to have someone talk about. Well, it was just theory, right? So I found it so hard to. I rather look at I don't know. I've been to college tour with some famous entrepreneurs, and they have a track record, so it's easier to believe. At least for me, it's not theory; it's practice, and I can share from my own experience that I can visualize the whole day that we had.
See,
and I find it so much harder to visualize the events where we're listening to someone's story, although it could be super interesting.
It doesn't say anything over the content. Maybe the content is wonderful that they have, but you will just not remember it because the brain doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And how do you walk the fine line in between experiencing, inspiring, and content? That's just difficult. I understand that's difficult. But I believe if we do it the way that we were trained, and if we give them that experience, we have big mission planning experiences where they have to make a big mission to save, let's say, a Congo with a hurricane. And if you plan that with the whole group, and you finally have a briefing for your commander, and with all the injects and stress and panic, and you manage to do that experience you will always remember. That's how it works. So that's what we do. That's the difference that we do.
And I think the interesting thing is that if you apply that on a business case, as a business can make that experience, so you do it with your business, but I think it can be applied with every business. Is okay, your customers or you're dealing with customers that buy a product. So what is the experience that you offer them? Is that an emotional change that you can realize, so they can actually remember you? And you were on the podcast with Dan Smith, for example. And that's what he's all about with the story brand and the emotional trigger and feeling that you can create with the business that you're in.
And if you show them that you have a really big backpack of experience, of making mistakes, of doing good or whatever, then they will believe you. They will take it from you. But you have to be, just like you said in your university, in your study, you want to look up to somebody to take it from them. That's how it works. And if a lot of times when we go, I call it chief's intent, but in our world, we have commander's intent. A lot of times a board makes a strategy and the -1 layer doesn't know what it is, doesn't know the boundaries of that strategy. in our world, if a commander makes an intent, we call it an intent. Everybody until the last boot on the ground, let's say it's 1,000 boots on the ground, they will all walk to the right if they have to. Nobody will make a mistake and walk to the left, because then you die. So how's it possible? And how does that work? So that's what we actually help people in. How is it clear? What is the experience you give them? What does the -1 do with it? Does he have it really clear? All knows the same direction. That's difficult. In the corporate world, you don't do it. In the commercial world, I don't know why, but we just don't do it. I didn't know when I was in the military, but now I know.
Yeah, it's a different environment, huh?
Yeah, you just don't get trained in behavior. You only get trained in content. That's not what I believe now is the answer. But maybe you have another answer. But I think that's it.
And one of the things what I really took out of the session we did today is the debrief part. Yeah. I found that so interesting. So in the military, it's so logical that you give back the assignment, for example. But in a work environment, it is, of course, you write down what the actions are from a meeting, maybe, but maybe someone else understood it in a complete different way, and that was such a great experience to realize that you can talk about things and then decide, okay, this is what needs to be happening, but the other person might think of it in a complete different way. So the debrief part is saying like, hey, can you repeat or can you share with me?
That's the back brief, That's what it's called. It's a back brief. Just give them back. Give the commander back. What do you think your assignment is and what rules are applied? So then the commander immediately knows, the chief or whatever you call it, he immediately knows if he was clear.
Yeah.
And if not, you can correct it.
Yeah. And it was such a practical thing. And because you were talking about the session that you do, get them a little bit out of the comfort zone. And I can imagine that a lot of business environments are normally operating within a comfort zone. Right, you're just doing your job, and sometimes you have to do something different. But in general, I think they're moving in a sort of a comfort zone. How can entrepreneurs or within a business environment already challenge people a little bit to get out of that comfort zone and do things a little bit in a way that we can learn from the military?
Give them a task, set boundaries, and trust them just a little bit outside of the normal work. That's exactly how it works. That's how we train it. Give them the opportunity to fail a little bit. And I know in the commercial world, it's about profit and you have to, everything is about money. But it doesn't have to be a very far thing, just very close, but just out of their normal thing. Give them just an extra task that they've never done before and see how well they do. Because it gives them the trust from you, but it gives them also kind of, they'll be more content in another way with themselves. You know what I mean? It's just, they'll just have more confidence of doing the rest as well. If they can see that they are allowed to just step out of it every once in a while. That doesn't have to be every day. That's the way you train it. That's the way what we do always.
And I think that's a really good advice. It's also in line with the growth mindset, what's in our work a very important thing. So always be learning, and failing is learning, and you develop from there. One of the challenges I personally experience sometimes is that people like to do new stuff, like to learn new stuff. But for example, we are an agency. We also need to deliver results to our clients, and sometimes learning new stuff can also be quite stressful because you haven't done it before. I don't know how it works. It takes a lot more time than expected to read about it, to learn it, to put it in practice, etc. This is something you can advise us to do in situations like that. Has it to do with the personality or with the environment? Because failing with us is we have like a big prize for the person that makes the biggest fuck up, sorry for my language, of the month.
But that's
we have
already
a channel
doing it.
full of failures, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
Right. I hope that everybody feels that mistakes are just okay. Right. So don't make them 3 times, but it's fine.
Yeah. So the question is, because you're doing that.
But still, I think I'm wondering what the effect is of doing new tasks on the stress level that people experience. Because I love to do new stuff, and I'm okay if I totally fail.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if everybody feels the same thing, because maybe it's the environment that we're in, because our partners, clients pay a rate per hour. And some things are expected from them.
Yeah.
We also calculate in some learning time for each thing that we do. But I believe that some people, I'm wondering if you think there's a relation between the stress level people experience and the new things that they do. Because if you're in the comfort zone, you're doing what you're good at. I think that's the least stressful place that you can be in. But correct me if I'm wrong.
No. You that's completely right. There is a lot of stress. Yeah, going with that. But stress is not very bad. Long-term stress is very bad. But just getting just a little bit of stress makes you act in a very good way, actually. But you have to know when to put it down again. So if you see somebody struggle too much, stress level will be there on long term. That's not correct. Then you just have to shift it a little bit to what that person needs. But that's why you always have to have people. You can have maybe you, but team leads or whoever it may be in your company that will just look at the person and say, okay, this was too much. Next time we'll put them out of the comfort zone, but just a little bit. Because if you are too far in that stress level, they will not perform very well.
Yeah.
And you can have a prize for the best fail or fuck up. But that will not be the effect that you want, because you want growth.
Yeah.
And you can only grow if you can cope with it and learn it. If you're too far, you cannot learn anymore.
Yeah, and one thing maybe to add is I can imagine that within the military, you always have that feeling of having backup, right? Isn't it?
You mean backup from the rest of the group?
Yeah, you're there as a team. No?
Well, I understand why you say it, but you have to imagine that the responsibility that you have as a captain for the whole crew, for the people on the ground, the moment that you put the boots on the ground, you know, if they die, you have to look back on it. So the responsibility is very, very big. You cannot put that on the rest of the group. It's not. You don't have the backup from their brains. It's you and you only. So you just have to know what you're doing, and you will always be out of the comfort zone. But you are trained in a way that part of the not being in the comfort zone is fine. And that stress part, it's fine. If you're too high, somewhere down the line in your training, you'll be corrected and not or be in that position or just in training still. You have to know, you have to see and look at your people very well. Where are they? How are they going? And therefore you have to debrief. What happened? What happened inside of you? We have to be very honest about how we feel. If I ask somebody in the morning, are you fit to fly? He has to be able to say, no, I had a shitty night.
Yeah.
And that's where it starts. Can he really tell you how he felt about you pushing him out of his comfort zone?
I think that's a good advice.
Okay.
But I think it's so different from many working environments.
Yeah.
There's the pressure, the stress that you, and I also read the book of Ray, and he also said, like, learn how to perform whatever the circumstances are. And he also said, like, being comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And if I went after reading that, I applied that within our work environment, because sometimes the situation with the client is not ideal. They don't, whatever happens, but learn how to perform whatever the situation is.
Yeah.
And he also says, like, if it doesn't go like it should, then it should go like it goes.
row with the pedals that you don't have.
Yeah. And that's, I think,
true.
such an interesting learning that from that environment that can be applied in a working environment.
But that's because we've trained it. From day one, they put us in a position that you can cope with that. All those commercial world people never trained it. So that's why I believe, and I train with your company, and then you see how they react on that. They want to do that. They love that. People love doing that and training that. It's the truth. They like doing that. But they just never do, and they just get put out there. I see that in a big advocacy company in the south of Amsterdam. Oh, the pressure's on, but way too high. All those people fail inside, not in the work, but inside. They'll have burnouts, definitely, because they were never trained in coping with that stress level. You have to build that up. Nobody was born having that stress level. Oh. I don't believe, even not a pilot.
No, I listened to the audio file. You showed it to us. I can imagine it was quite stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. In my brain, I was completely in panic. I thought that was out there as well, but when I heard the tape, it was not there. No. It was only in my brain. So that's the difference. In your brain, something happens, but you act in a way because you've trained it, and that's exactly what training your people and being in out of their comfort zone. It's exactly the same.
And one thing I like about what you said is the stress is not a bad thing.
No.
Not always a bad thing.
No.
And I also believe that I once read that fear and excitement are
Close.
Are really close. The only difference is the outcome that you imagine.
Yeah.
So fear, you imagine a bad outcome, and excitement, you imagine a good outcome.
Yeah.
So if you can, the thing I wanted to go through is in a lot of situations, stress is experienced or like being positioned in a place where it's bad. What did you learn in the military about stress and how to deal with stress that people can apply in a working environment? Because you were capable of dealing with such a high stress level in environments where you don't know what's happening, and that by itself can already be so stressful.
Yeah.
Is there an advice that you can give people to deal with stress and see a little bit different? And
Yeah. Well, there's not one advice. It starts with doing it more often. So that's rule one. But if you experience it is breath work is the first thing that comes to mind. If we have to fire a gun, stress level goes up. Your breathing goes more quick, and that's the weapon will move. So that's just for instance, just to make an example. It's a little thing that we start learning how to breathe in a stressful situation. So we call it the Terrein method. You breathe in, keep still, breathe out, and you have to fire the shot just right into holding your breath. But it works on a lot more parts of life. But also the way you look at the situation that you are in. Most of the time, we have a complete wrong picture of what's going on. So they ask us questions like, okay, but what possibly could go wrong, or what is the worst that could happen, or what is, learning how to look at the situation makes a difference as well. If I can see a terrible situation like, okay, I'll just handle it, I'll just see what comes and I'll fight back at that moment. It's completely different than, okay, I don't know what to do when it comes. But that's just a mind fuck. So it's training how you look at it and how you deal with it. Yeah, it's not the right answer just to go out in your commercial world immediately. But there's not one answer. There's not one thing for every person. I don't believe that.
It's a mindset thing, huh?
It is a mindset thing, yeah. But you have to question yourself. That's why I always say be curious at yourself and what happens. Why do I see it the way I do? What happens when I get stressed? How can I turn it into excitement, the fear that I feel? Because it's the same feeling, only the outcome, but the outcome is mindset. So it's very minor. It's in the details.
And already being aware of your own thinking is, I think, a good starting point. So.
Exactly.
Because I think people don't really think of when they get stressed. And that's, I think, a really good advice is, so in what situation, what led you to become stressful or nervous, or your hands got sweaty? What triggers that, and what was the feeling and how can you change that? Because be aware of that when it's happening, why it's happening, and try to change that. I think that's already...
That's what I mean. Our trainers will always, if I become in a stressful situation, for instance, I'm afraid of heights. A lot of pilots are, by the way. So, but if I was on a mountaintop, very, very high, and I had to swing down or climb down a rope, and I was completely shitless scared. The trainer would always ask me, what happens? Then I would tell him, and he says, okay, but what do you think about the rope? Is it strong enough? It's strong enough. Yes, it's strong enough. What do you think about me looking at your gear? Do you think I checked it right? Yes, I think you checked it. So, he peels it off just to make sure where does the fear come from. What is afraid you can't fall? You see that now? Yeah, you cannot fall. It's just the fear. Okay, then you can park it. Not in every situation you can apply it, but if you can cut it down into little pieces, it will always work. Always. Just figure it out where it comes from.
And I think exposure helps as well. Just
100%.
Just do it. Then do it again. Do it again.
Yeah.
That's why I actually started talking more, because I hadn't done it for a while, and then I was asked to speak at an Immerse event, and it's quite a big event. And I was like, oh shit, I was quite nervous to speak. And I was like, why am I so nervous? I should do it more often. Yeah. So now I'm at the Spreekshuis.
Yeah, wonderful, right?
Just doing more, because that was out of my comfort zone. Yeah. And I was like, well, this was a little bit too stressful, so I should get there more often
Yeah.
outside of the comfort zone, so it becomes more comfortable, and then it gets
Exactly, that's
go
it.
to the next level.
That's it. I always tell the speakers that I train, I always tell them, if you get in fear and if you feel it coming, just imagine that you're in a pub telling somebody the story that you actually want to tell. Because that makes it's the same story.
Yeah,
You have to do it in the same way.
yeah,
And then immediately you see them calming down.
yeah. And the good thing about that is not only the pub, it's also the story part. So if you tell about a story, your experience that you have, you it's so hard to forget, right? If you train yourself,
You cannot do it wrong.
no, it's an experience. It's something that is in there, so you don't have to worry about that you forget it. No, it's a story that you tell. It's a personal story you've experienced.
Yeah.
And you might tell it a little bit different, but it's in
Doesn't
there
matter.
and it will always be in there, and you can find it. So if you train yourself to discuss some slides that you just found somewhere, I don't know, yes, then you might lose it.
Yeah.
But if it's a personal story,
Yeah.
and that's why I think you're so good at presenting as well, because it's your story and it's so personal.
I cannot fail.
No.
But somebody said, okay, but you cannot fail maybe in the story. But what if you slip on stage and you fall? So well, then I say I felt.
Yeah.
I fell. Sorry, I stand up and I say, "Wow, that was funny," and I go on. It doesn't say anything about me. It's just I tripped.
Yeah.
That's the way you have to look at it. But somebody has to tell you to look at it that way.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It's easy, right?
Yeah, it's easy. Easy to think of it now, but
Yeah.
then you're in front of
No, it's
hundreds,
hard.
yeah. But that's good. I like it. I like
Yeah.
to challenge myself a
Yeah.
little bit. And you do as well. So, what do you see happening now in the work environment in terms of how people deal with each other? So we have kids as well, and you already said like times are changing, and it's good. What do you see in the work environment changing now and in the future, where entrepreneurs can learn from in terms of how people deal with each other and should deal with each other?
Yeah, I think the whole silo thing that everybody was in the last 30 years, maybe, I don't know, being just in your own bubble, not seeing the rest of them. I think that is what we are losing bit by bit. And I think that's a good thing. Just have the situational awareness more wide. And I think it starts with being curious yourself. So CEOs have to start doing it, because you cannot train the rest of your company if you don't want to train. So that's the shift I see. They know, the big companies know, small companies as well, but they have to give their people more than only just a salary and content to work in and a nice spot to sit in. They just want to grow. We are shifting with the whole earth. Yeah, if you can say it that way, but the whole world is shifting into who am I? What am I doing? Why do I do it? Climate. Everybody is busy with what are they doing and what is their role on the whole thing, not only in their specific spot. And we have to help them with it. And it starts with the CEO. So lead by example is the best thing there. Yeah, that's a shift that I see. And you are a very good example of it. You teach your people you can fail. You teach your people try. You teach, by for instance, giving us the opportunity to train your people. A lot of people just never get to that step. Do not call the normal training companies. Just go a little bit out of the comfort zone. It was out of your comfort zone maybe to hire us and to see what happens.
Yeah, but I love to learn myself as well. It's,
but
and I fail as well, so I share my.
You lead by example.
I hope.
Yes, you do. Yeah, otherwise you would not give out a prize of the most failures or most mistakes.
Yeah.
You show them that it's fine to do that, but you don't want to know how often I train a management layer and the board is not open for anything at all, but they want them to do it. That's strange, right? What is that? And I tried to challenge the CEO then, and it's up there, the older generation. It's difficult.
Yeah, and I hope for me that never changes. So doing the small stuff like after lunch, clean up the stuff, and all the small, like I'm always part of almost everything. I don't want to be the boss that don't joins, I don't know, an exercise after. I always try to be there and be part of everything, because I'm not anything more than anyone else. I just
what that
started
is?
earlier.
That's wisdom. That's not being wise. That's what the other CEOs are. They want to be wise, but you have the wisdom, if I can say so, because that is making you open to see what else is outside of your vision, maybe outside of your ideas, maybe, and that's why you can grow the way you grow, and not because you're very good in your job, but as a person, and you take them within your stream up there. Yeah. That's I believe the way it should be. You make mistakes, I make mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes in my company, and sometimes they hate me just because the way I am. But I have to know that I have to go back and say, I'm so sorry, guys, but I just, that was me being blah, 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 irritated because I felt like this and it's not the truth. I know how you did it. I love you guys. Thank you for doing all the work that you do for me. That's what you have to do. They have to know that I make mistakes. They can make mistakes. And sometimes I yell at them because they made a very stupid mistake that cost me a lot of money, but I'll high five them for trying.
Yeah. Act first, apologize later is what I say.
Yeah, it happens. You're only human.
And it's funny. Once recently, I was a bit irritated by something that happened, and I said to a colleague, "What? Blah blah blah," and I slipped a little bit, and he was like, "Oh, well, that doesn't really give me a nice feeling when you say it like." I was like, "Oh yes, you're right. I'm sorry, man." And then we barked. So that's quick as that.
Yeah, but that's it.
And there was such a nice interaction. I was like, I slipped. He was like, "Oh, it doesn't." He gave me the feedback directly. I was like, "Oh yes, I'm sorry, man. I shouldn't have done it like that."
Yeah.
It's actually so easy if you do it more often.
Yes,
because then you also have the environment to do it like, and it's okay. Like I know I'm not perfect, and no, not a lot of people are.
No,
and
nobody
if they think
is.
they are, then they're not perfect.
They need a training. No, but that's what if you ask Sander Aars, if you ask Ray Klaas, if you ask Dijkart, or whoever in all that environment, if you ask me, this is what we were trained in. Just give feedback immediately. Just do it. Just say sorry. Just high five on the highs and lows. Especially
in the working culture, because that's what I once did for Eneco. I changed the whole the salary. How do you grow in salary? Like and how do you are reviewed and all that stuff. I changed that because if you talk, I compared it with the marriage. Like if you cannot talk about your marriage or once a year. Like, or once every half year. So, okay, let's discuss how our marriage going. 3 months ago, you cooked that dinner. I didn't really like it. You just say it at the spot. So I don't, you just give the feedback directly. And you can also not put your kids in a row and say, oh yeah, you were the sweetest this year, so you get the biggest bag with candy. That's what happens in a working environment.
Absolutely,
So,
I hate it.
And you cannot do it, and you have to give that feedback directly and discuss it with each other and improve from there, and always look forward. That's what I really think companies should do, is look forward rather than always look backwards. Something, of course, you have to analyze and review and see, but then use that knowledge to agree on something for the future and try to improve from there instead of always looking at the bad things that didn't go
so
as
powerful.
planned.
So powerful.
Yeah. But I think from this episode, what I liked most, and I think, I'm not sure if it's highlighted enough, that's why I want to repeat it, is when you're on a mission with 1,000 people, everyone knows what's going on. Everyone knows what direction they're on. Everyone knows what's expected from them.
At least in their part, yeah.
And this is such a powerful thing, I think. And this is what entrepreneurs should do. Be very transparent, be very open, make sure everyone understands what your mission is.
What the intent is, yes.
What direction you're on, what expected from them, etc. And make it as easy for them to explain it. And that's where you come to, you have to understand that, but also make it easy to back brief, or like even, because how cool is it if you're at a birthday somewhere as a part of a team and you can explain with a couple of sentences what the mission that you're on with the company.
Yeah. But nobody can.
You have to make it so clear.
Yeah. And give them the trust within their part and their boundaries that you set to try and do so. Because they can. That's why you hired them. In the end.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. Good resume.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Is there anything new happening at the Boost Company we should be aware of? It's the last question.
Oh, yeah. Well.
New exciting stuff.
Yeah, I think the big mission planning experiences, the hasty planning, where we put all the injects in and you make a mission just inside a building, not outside. You can have all the outside training you want, but we can do it inside and tell you everything about how you act as a group and what's the outcome. And that is so worthful. I love it. I see those people smiling in the end and they have a hard time doing it, but in the end they high five, and they can take it exactly that back into their companies and back into their offices and just get a better output. That's what I love most right now, what we're doing.
Yeah. And from my experience, for all the listeners, like if you really want to have like an amazing experience with your team outside of your comfort zone, completely different from every training they've done before with a huge impact, then they should definitely contact you. And I'll make sure to have the details somewhere in the description.
Thank you.
But you're not that hard to find either.
Not anymore.
You're all over the place.
Thank you so much for having me, Bart.
Yeah, thanks for being here, and we'll be in touch, I guess.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I will.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, watching, wherever you are, to the Redefine Growth podcast. Hope to see you next time. There's some amazing guests lined up. If you got any names that we should invite, please leave their names in the comments. We'll make sure to invite them. Thanks for watching. See you next time.